Hey guys, Mitko here from DN Models. Today we're taking a closer look at one airbrush that comes from China, but is not like the other cheapo knockoffs that I've reviewed before. This is not a knockoff by far, but instead a branded airbrush that comes from a respected company in Asia who is already stepping into the scale modeling business with injection molded scale models. They are famous with their modeling tools actually, and are called Border. But let's get back on the airbrush here. The name is Black Flame and mine is version 2.0. I cannot talk about the previous versions, but at first glance this airbrush seems very impressive. Now let's examine it more thoroughly. The box is made of cardboard material and a high quality one too. It is not as good as a plastic one, but this is as close as it can get considering the material. It reminds of a flagship smartphone in terms of boxing and quality. The outside of the box contains basic information about the airbrush as well. Opening it, inside you can find the tool neatly hidden behind foaming insulation for additional protection. Inside of the box you can find the airbrush, a wrench, a braided fitting for a pneumatic hose, and a crown cap, which is placed inside of a small jar also for additional protection. Beneath all that there is an instruction leaflet folded in two and stashed on the bottom of the box. Now we'll start with the instruction leaflet first. The instruction leaflet is double-sided. On both of the sides the information seems to be equal, however on one side it is in English and on the other it is in Chinese. Supposedly, since I cannot distinguish it anyhow. The leaflet does not contain much information, to be frank. There is a simple diagram of the airbrush, the same one that you have on the back of the box. There is a simplified information that usually is part of a much larger instruction sheet. On top of that, there is a QR code that you can eventually scan directly from your screen here and check what is on that link. Anyhow, whoever made this instruction sheet thought about experienced airbrush user instead of a first-timer. Maybe with their next release, Border will address this issue. The add-ons included with this airbrush are standard for some airbrushes, but for others there is a bonus added. There is a wrench, of course, which is mandatory. There is a fitting for a pneumatic hose as well. This is something that I have seen with several other companies, and if you're interested which ones, check my airbrush reviews section on this channel. The pneumatic hose braided connector is nice because you can easily add junctions to the line for more than one airbrush, and that is the cheapest way to approach this idea. The most important add-on though is the crown cap. This little thingy can go up to $20 US depending on the company that produces it, and here you get it for free. It is beautiful add-on and helps for spraying closer to the model with the airflow escaping around the cutted areas. It is nicely packed in a small jar with a cap, but I prefer to keep it on the airbrush at all times. Always give better precision. Despite having information about the weight and the size of the airbrush, I tend to check that on my own with each of my airbrushes, just to be sure. This airbrush is pretty standard in terms of weight and size. It weighs around 130 grams with the color cup, and without it, it is about 105. This is of course before any paint is poured into it. With the connector it goes to 136, but plus or minus 1 gram is nothing. That always changes with the paint inside, and percentage-wise it can be easily omitted. The airbrush features very nice trigger and a Teflon sealing inside of the color cup mount. That last one is a good and clever add-on. The airbrush is coated in black and it looks very posh and high-ended tool. I can hardly speculate how long this coating would last, but if it does, it is guaranteed that this tool will stand out on your bench. The color cup is probably the thing that will eventually get stripped from the coating first, because this is where the thread is and the friction will damage it in time. Also, this part is the one that gets cleaned the most and very often too, thus it is expected to see some changes, again with time. This is only speculation, of course. I can advise on that in a year or two after I use it long enough to be certain and to put it to extreme mediums and see how it will react to them. Parts go together easily and the overall quality is much higher compared to any regular Chinese cheapo airbrush. The trigger action is smooth and the airbrush fits the hands very nicely, plus the coating gives additional nice and smooth grip when you hold it. Hopefully this will last you for a long time, because if it does, it will really add to the value of the tool. Besides, this makes it very different from the regular Chinese cheapo, because this is not a cheap airbrush, nor it is oriented towards the clients that are looking for one. But let's see how it works. Few things to add before we start. The paint is mixed dark tracks and the tests were done on a very dry day with low humidity, which is unusual for the area where I do the test usually. This is pressure 1.2-1.3 bars, paint is undiluted. As you can see, you get some overspray from the get-go. A drop of thinner added. Slightly lower pressure here. The airbrush sprays nicely, but my paint isn't right in terms of dilution. Let's try again. I had to clean the tip every once in a while because, as mentioned, the humidity in that day was extremely low. The reason why is unknown. The airbrush allows for precise lines, especially if you use properly thinned paint. Thinner added again, clean tip 2. This paint is old and I will soon get rid of it. Besides, probably from now on, I'll do my tests with Gunze or Tamiya. Mick AK, Vallejo and such are not the best paints out there, especially for testing purposes. However, the airbrush works fine enough. You can fill the areas, draw smooth and consistent lines, and the only thing I notice is that the trigger is a bit heavy. It is not looped, nor am I used to the airbrush, so this is not an issue. So instead of conclusion, this is far from the Chinese airbrush that we are used to get. It comes from China, but this is actually a very good tool. The trigger is a bit heavy, but when you get used to it, it means more control and it depends on everyone's personal feel. I have information that Border Model are working on an improved version of this airbrush. They have dug deep into airbrushing and studied what can be improved with this tool. Eventually, we will soon see a new and better version of this gun, but even as it is here, this airbrush is highly recommended. My paint wasn't okay, the day was extremely dry, and with that, this gun performed great. Good job from Border, and I would suggest to check this tool if you're looking to buy an airbrush. I trust you will love it. Thanks for watching, feel free to comment down below, share this video and subscribe. I hope that it was useful for you and I will see you in the next one.